Hi, I'm Judy Horn. My husband Nelson and I are realtors in the Coachella Valley, servicing the greater Palm Springs area. Nelson and I have been extremely active in bank-owned properties for the last year and a half. Bank-owned properties are really a source of curiosity for all kinds of people. People who ask us questions on how the process works, what kind of people, what kind of houses, etc. That gave us an idea to do a documentary tracing our involvement with the bank from the point where we reach an assignment to sell a home all the way up until the conclusion of the sale and the new owner takes occupancy. Please stay with us as this unfolds. It will be almost like a series. As each one of these segments is finished, we will post them on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. It's not unusual to start our day by going to the computer and checking our email to see if the bank has assigned us any new properties. This is especially important now because the last of the two bank-owned properties we had just went into escrow on Friday. So after we see that we have a new listing that's been potentially assigned to us, the clock starts ticking. We have a very limited amount of time in which to decide whether or not we are going to accept that particular listing. So we will go out, typically the way we do it is we will go out to the multiple listing service and see if this property was ever listed. If it was listed recently and didn't sell, and try to get the whole property history as to what this might be about. This also enables us to find and map this property to see exactly where the location is. After we pull up that data, we'll print a few copies for which to use as an evaluation during the breakfast this morning to decide whether we will be accepting it. We will also go out and print a preliminary tax record form. So this isn't required by the bank, but it is something Nelson and I like to do to try to check the train and the history of the house, the financing, who owned it, who owns it now. We will go later and we'll pull a full property profile, including all tax documents. Again, not required by the bank, but we feel it's good practice as agents to know everything there is to know about that property and to see actually before we even start accepting it whether or not there are any liens or anything that's unusual with the property. So we'll take our reports now and we'll go to breakfast. Well, I'm having breakfast, and maybe you can tell my dog Kodak happens to be near me. I've had a chance to review some of the initial paperwork that has come through from the bank, and certainly is going to be a house we're going to go down and take a look at and all likelihood list. I also heard my email announcement that I have received the names of the team members from the bank. That would be someone called a pre-asset manager who is responsible. We both work together up until the moment that property gets listed in the multiple listing service. After that, it becomes the responsibility of someone that's referred to as the asset manager. I also had an indication too, I was notified immediately of another group called the Asset Preservation Group. This is a group that I work closely with right up until the time that this house gets listed in the MLS. They're the ones that will come in if it needs cleanup, if the house certainly is going to need to be rekeyed, and they provide any emergency services as well as any connectivity for the utilities. So, that being said, Nelson is in the car, he's waiting, and we're going to go and take a look at the property. Our first step in looking at the property is to determine occupancy. Is it occupied or not occupied? Because two separate things happen. If the property is occupied, immediately the bank goes into what they call an eviction mode. However, that being said, there is also a process where they ask us to go in to establish contact with the occupants, be that former owner or tenants, and to try to arrange some sort of a financial incentive for them to leave within a window. That may sound a little harsh, except last year we did over 30 of these properties, and every single person was delighted that the bank was going to help them move out. And some of those checks have been as high as $10,000. Well, let's get ready and let's go see what this property looks like. We've arrived at our destination, and the first thing that we were trained to do is to check to see if this house is occupied or vacant. You'll see Nelson removing the former realtor sign, and according to the MLS, it hasn't been on the real estate market for 2 years. But anyway, let's move forward and see what we can find out about this particular home. This is a definite tip-off. This house is empty. Most of the time, sometimes you have trouble determining whether or not they are. But let's take a look around. We see newspapers, phone books piled up, and we also see many notices that have been placed on the board. So we're going to check the lockbox and see, after all these years, if this is still... What's posted on the board?
Notice of trustee sale. Today is February 5th. The trustee sale was February 3rd, Wednesday, so it took them less than 48 hours after the bank took possession of the property to assign it to us. 2 municipal citations from Cathedral City for, I'm sure, not keeping up the yard. And here's the same notice of some civil codes in 6 different languages.
Property. Nelson and I typically take a tour around. We've noticed our friendly little dog next door who's greeted us quite vocally, but we're going to pass to the backyard and see what we can see. Sometimes one has to be very careful when entering these properties and know what you're getting into. Oh my. This particular home is going to be a challenge to sell, as you can see. It has been unoccupied for quite some time. I have no idea what this is. I'm sure Nelson will be looking at it. And you can see the yard is in various states of disrepair. Right off the bat before entering, though, I do look and I see a beautiful vista of a mountain snow-capped behind us. Hi, everyone. We're back at the house from our tour of this newly assigned property. What we're going to do now is communicate with the bank. We are going to be letting the bank know that we have decided to take this assignment. Additionally, we are delighted to tell them that the property is vacant, which means no cash for keys. This greatly simplifies the listing process. Next, once we tell the bank that we've accepted, the property is vacant, no cash for keys, we will do what is called a entrance of material they call a drive-by broker's price opinion. Drive-by because we couldn't get into the property. We saw how secure it was. We will be reporting some very obvious things to them, such as confirming the location, confirming the need for landscaping, confirming the need to have some basic services done, such as the roll-down shutters you saw need to be tended to, electricity put on, etc. From that point, when we finish, and this is all done via an online system, we will then go in work with what we called earlier the asset preservation group, and we will inform them of the same information we told the bank. At some point, this group will be dispatching a vendor who will come out, take the locks off the door, replace them, and make a determination about the inside of the property if it needs to be cleaned out. They usually call it a trash out. Most of the time, Nelson and I show up with these vendors and actually work with them to put the house in the best possible condition. So, as you can see, this is the very early stages of starting to get this property listed and ready for sale. Please stay with us and take the journey as we move step forward by step forward to the conclusion when this property